I know that the faith community was an instrumental asset in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Ida, when approximately 535 homes were flooded, 1,000 immediately displaced, and 310 cars were flooded in Mamaroneck. Our community came out in force to help out. How do you think we can capture that energy that the Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force has demonstrated so well to serve our community's ongoing housing needs that were exacerbated by this crisis? In other words, if we can make such an impact on food insecurity, how can we do the same for housing?
You know, the response, a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, was incredible. Only greater than the beauty of the response was the ugliness of the incident itself. I mean, walking around, particularly Washingtonville, where some of our people live, the morning after that terrible storm, it was like I was walking in a newsreel. You know, it was, and you couldn't help but look at the people, you know, with that sense of loss and emptiness and abandonment in their eyes, the piles of their belongings out on the front, eventually being picked up by bulldozers, you know, to clear the trash. It was so awful that the heart could not help but be moved to intervene. And look, that is one of the great challenges. Your question, Gloria, is one of the great challenges that we as religious leaders struggle with, as all leaders struggle with. You know, it's not so hard to get people to react when a crisis is right in front of their eyes, when you see people in pain and suffering so obviously. The greater challenge is, okay, how do we get people to recognize that there are people living without affordable housing, without food all the time right here in our town, and to get that sense of urgency. And, you know, I think it's part of why this coalition is so important, part of why I'm really feel privileged to be able to speak with you today, is because that's how we're going to do it. We're going to have to keep putting the facts in front of people in different ways, whether it's, you know, us in our pulpits, or I know that we generally and many organizations in the town and faith houses of faith in the town have representatives on the coalition. And it's going to take constant vigilance, because it does, you know, on the one hand, crises are awful, but they garner response. The day-to-day helping people, that's the real challenge, and it's going to take all of us doing our part in really getting the message out there.
You're right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Reverend, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sure. No, I was just listening to you, and I was thinking the same thing of, you know, it takes me right back to that day and the days and the weeks of just the devastation and the pain. And, you know, St. Thomas was obviously a hub for the donations and that overwhelming kind of, you know, just, and I think also, yeah, absolutely what Jeff was saying is that it's easy to respond in that. I mean, as hard as it is in the moment, it's easy to, you know, people, it's right there. And, you know, our community is a community filled with amazing, generous, connected people. And it's a community that showed up again and again and again, not just in the flood, but for getting us through the darkest days of the COVID pandemic, the Coalition for Community that, you know, that just for food insecurity, for all of those things, it continues to show up. And I believe deeply that Mamaroneck can be a community model of a community that gets it right on affordable housing as well, because we have the talent and we have the passion. I think, as Jeff said, it's a matter of the urgency and the helping to people to understand that this is just as much of an issue as, you know, as the flood, as the as food. And also, I think, you know, dispelling misinformation and myths, and what people, helping people to understand when people hear affordable housing, what does that mean to them, and getting rid of all of these ideas of what that means, and showing that it's really about developing a beautiful, diverse, wonderful community together, which is what everybody wants.